What about? Do you mind if we get to horror?
Sure. Well, I think we're already there in a way.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, because horror is one of these things that I like how Stephen Gray Donis, who's a deacon and movie reviewer, put it. There may be no other genre that is so filled with garbage as horror. So, granted,
Sure.
much of the horror out there is tasteless trash. Even if you don't think that's true, for the sake of argument, you could begin with a strong claim like that, and then to say, and yet, does horror have a place for the Christian?
Right.
Is it even appropriate to wish to be scared? So what's your thoughts on horror? Do you have a defense of it?
Sure. I guess I do, with the same caveat and, grain of salt or grains of salt, that it's a dangerous genre to get into because you don't always know what you're going to find. But there is a theme there that's very ancient. There's always been stories about ghosts, about monsters, about death, about fear. From fairy tales to mythology, it's always been part of the fabric of our imagination and the expressions of our imagination through storytelling. And I think part of the purpose of the horror story is to remind us that we're not in control. We're not absolutely in control for all of our learning, for all of our technologies, for all of our discoveries. There are powers that are beyond our ken and our control. And I think a good horror story is wrestling with that, to sort of put the right, it's like, I guess what you would say, what the purpose of the Gothic literary movement was. Edgar Allan Poe, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein,
even Flannery
O'Connor, Southern Gothic. That's what they call her work. To say that for all of our science, there are things that are not accounted for in that, and we need to be aware of that and to stay. Well, humble is one word, fearful is another. So the Gothic movement is maybe in reaction to the scientism of the Victorian age, or the periods of enlightenment,
or it may even be. I think I'm thinking of Lovecraft. I mean, when I read Lovecraft, I read like an atheist. Maybe he's not, but I interpret him this way: who's coming to grips with a chaotic universe that cannot be ordered by God or faith or narrative.
Yes.
It's just nuts.
Yes, and it's funny how Lovecraft really is, he's very mystical. Like his monsters they're demons. They're almost like these spiritual beings. He can get physical. I think Lovecraft was maybe wrote the first series of zombie stories.
Really?
The Undead. The Reanimator series. Have you ever read that?
No.
They're quite funny. That's high-end zombie literature.
Okay.
Yeah. They are worth the read. But they are more amusing than anything. But yeah, Lovecraft is tapped into that. There's something about him that I don't quite trust because he seems, I don't know, I think that he struggled with mental health.
I feel that way as well when you say that. I don't know what I mean by that, but I feel the same way. When I read Poe, I love Poe. Just a brilliant author.
Yeah.
Those first few lines of The House of Usher are just so well written.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I feel that way about Lovecraft as well. So you think he struggled with mental illness? Or?
That's what I understand, or at least his stories strike me as someone who that was struggling in this way, and his phantasms don't make as much sense to me. In a sense, I don't find him as frightening as Poe, because I don't relate to sort of the pitch of his anxieties in the same way as I can enter into Edgar Allan Poe's world. But Poe certainly is someone who wants to show how fragile we are, psychologically, physically, how we can misinterpret things, how our worlds, our realities, our houses can suddenly come crashing down when you least expect it, or when you think that you're on the right path, when you're trying to find completion and
Yes.
wholeness, and then everything
bottom
goes
falls out.
backwards. Yeah, which is that's a very ancient. I mean, that's just the classical structure of a tragedy, where a good man selects very inappropriate means to get an end that is good, and then he turns out to be the author of his own undoing, and he only discovers that when it's too late.
Did you ever watch Breaking Bad?
I did.
What did you think?
That was a rough one. Yeah, it was. I was very impressed with how they adhered to that mode of tragedy. You know, almost to, you know, maybe this
Painful
is
degrees.
Yeah, almost to a Shakespearean pitch, which is maybe giving it too high of a compliment, but. It was a troublesome experience. My wife and I watched it, and I think it was the only series that I felt like I couldn't walk away from.
Oh, I got to one point, I forget which season it was, where he is fine with the boy dying, or somehow is instrumental in that young boy dying. I'm like, nah, done. Not watching this again.
Right.
Which is exactly what they wanted you to do. So it's probably a point to them. I ended up watching the whole thing, and the thing I really enjoyed it. It was so satisfying. The last episode was absolutely satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always expecting the final episode to be unsatisfying, because it feels like they just drag these things out forever to keep making money. But when he said to Skylar, I'm doing all of this for, and he so often said you, and he finally admits me, and the selfishness sort of comes out.
Yes.
The thing I found difficult with it is, like, our age is cynical enough. So, yeah, congratulations. Here's another cynical frickin' story. But
right.
Wouldn't it be nice if we had, like, a good guy who chose to do a good thing? Like, just to change things up. Or a bad guy who chose to start doing good things, so his life becomes beautiful. It's such a all these stories that are coming out of these downward spirals into...
Right. Yeah.
And I wonder... Yeah, I don't know what I think about it, but I just feel like there's enough of those, and I don't know if that's coming from a healthy place.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of beating a dead horse in a way. It's like there's plenty of cynicism going around. There's plenty of, you know, despair-inducing situations in the world, and lives that are collapsing. Whether, you know, even by means of a kind of tragic trajectory where we're just trying to do something right, and then but it doesn't turn out, and then we realize that, well, maybe our motivations weren't wholesome to begin with, and what are we left with? Like this nothingness. And that series was very effective in doing that. But you're right, we need yet another and an extraordinarily powerful story that just sort of manifests our plight, the loss of hope.
Because I think what you were saying is in reference to, in contrast to this, you've got the Robin Hood. Like, that's your point, right? It's like, what if a story of a man who was noble and good?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and I wonder if the world could handle it.
If you like that clip, be sure to like and subscribe. Cheers.